1 hour. I'm like, yeah, that makes me take more. And you should went to bed 2 hours enough.
Okay, guys. I think because it's late and we're sort of getting to the end of the day, I'd like to just ease us into the next phase regarding patents, inventions in general. Because as we said this morning when we discussed the different categories of rights, you should always remember that it's a bundle of rights, but that they're not mutually exclusive. So when you think about an invention, it encompasses so many possible forms of different rights that you should think of it as a basket of rights and not as something specific. Although in the bigger picture you need to protect those specific rights, but when you think about an invention, you think about it holistically. Because to take that invention to the market, you need to think about it holistically, from start to finish. So yes, I just wanted to say something regarding the domain name dispute resolution. The last thing is we are busy looking at the possibility of maybe getting an ICANN accredited African domain name dispute resolution service provider, which would then provide the dispute resolution services for .Africa, which would then hopefully be made up out of African panelists, people that know the continent, the cultures, and also possibly for individual country code top-level domains, which at this stage is administered either by the individual countries or by WIPO, which isn't ideal. So there is an initiative to have an African dispute resolution service provider accredited at ICANN, but we'll see how that goes. You guys are all in the business of innovation, so that's why you got your bursaries and that's why you're here. So just out of the top of your heads, if you hear the word innovation, what does that entail in your minds? What do you think about? What does it say to you? If you're applying for a bursary and you should get the bursary on the grounds of being innovative, what does that mean? Does it mean just having an idea?
Uniqueness.
No, go ahead.
It's not just having an idea, but just the idea could also be an innovation itself.
Yes.
It's not really just the actual doing, but the mere show of the idea and its uniqueness to solve a particular problem is an invention.
Yes, exactly. It's the idea, and then it's a lot of different processes in between. It's research, it's development, it's protection, then it's realization, and that at the end of the day is innovation. Not having a great idea, and the protection part is an integral part of it. So from the very start, whichever project you're working on, you need to think about all of those different processes. And throughout those processes, you need to think about protecting that idea. Whether it's from the very start, whether it's only a concept, a nice idea, a way of doing something, you need to think through all of those processes. You need to have a very wide, very integrated view, because if you don't protect properly at any of those stages, your idea would not be a commercial success and it won't be innovation.
This is reminding me of a little chat that I have with a former CEO that I worked with. He said, nobody is leaking idea, but the most successful one is the idea that works.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
This
Yes.
is the same as you were saying.
So for your projects as well, think holistically. For every step of the way, there's something you can do to manage the process better to protect your rights better and to make the end product much more viable. So through every stage you go through with your project, future endeavors, you need to think about every stage individually, not only when I reach the last stage, then I need to do something and see what I can do to protect it the best I can. Or you only protect it once it's out there and someone infringes or steps on your toes.
I think that it is very difficult to think like that, because when we create when we have a project, or when we begin a project, we don't know if it will be a great success or no. So all money we have is to how can I make that this project work and give me money. And it is when I have many money, I think now, how can I protect this project?
I think then
totally agreement,
because I said this because the process to protect an idea in Africa is very complicated. The step is very difficult, and for a young entrepreneur or for a young startup, you don't have the money to put in this kind of thing.
No, but it's if we are talking about protecting the innovation, one of the tools of monitoring concurrence is to patent your innovation. You must put money there, or it will not work, or maybe it will work for 1 month, 1 year, who knows, and after that you will get copied after all. You must think about that and put the budget for it. If you don't have the budget, you cannot go further, you know.
In other words, I personally think that when you are innovating, you have tons of ideas. You have like 10 ideas, right?
Yeah.
And what I think you need to do is just try them out, because you never know which one is going. Out of maybe 20 ideas, only one of them or two of them is going to succeed. And it's important to have a very, very easy and very, very cost-effective way of protecting that idea. Because if you spend all your energy trying to protect something, that is not going to fail. This is like 5% of what you're going to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
it's
you
not the
need to have a
first
very
thing to do,
painless.
it's the process.
Yeah.
It's not the first thing to do.
That's exactly what I want you guys to think about as we go along. We'll look at the specifics of the categories of rights like copyright and patents in some more detail tomorrow.
Okay.
But what I want to instill in you now is that it's a total strategy you need to think of, and the strategy does not imply spending a lot of money. Part of it at some stage would involve you maybe needing to spend money, but there are a lot of things you can do beforehand that would enable the processes later to work a lot more effectively. So you need to have an internal and an external strategy, so to speak, and that strategy involves numerous things. How you implement that strategy would determine at the end of the day the success of your invention. And that's what I'm trying to instill, is the idea that it's a basket of things you need to work towards in order to, at the end of the day, have a successful patent or a successful strategy. And the strategy you need to have is external both and internal. Just for example, the way you develop your product, from the very first idea, do you share that idea with as many people as you can in order for someone to give you money?
No.
Exactly. Depending on the idea, depending on but that idea in itself is worth something. So if you don't have the strategy of protecting your idea, if you just put it out there, it'll be terribly difficult later on to patent it. Or someone with the resources would just, and then it's not confidential anymore. It's not protectable by way of trade secret, because a lot of people know about it. It's not novel anymore, which is, as we'll see tomorrow, is one of the requirements for patentability. That's just an example. So that's the first thing. Who do you share it with? And if you share it with someone, what can you do to protect it? Do you sign a confidentiality agreement with them? That's one option. There are many other options. But you see what I'm saying? You need to have a strategy. You need to think about these things as you go along. And let's say you have a patentable invention, but it takes you 3 years to reach that stage where you actually have a workable invention, and now you're in the process of wanting to patent it. Did you, for instance, make notes as you went along to know exactly how you reached that process? Because that will be needed when the patent is applied for. How technically it works, how exactly the process works. Let's say you're a scientist.
Would, sorry to
Yes.
cut you off, would the source code be enough?
If you're talking about,
If it's commented, for example.
if you're talking about software patents, it would be able to separate the source code from whatever's added to it. And if you're not sure which source code you actually used, or how many people contributed to the original source code, it won't be novel. It won't necessarily be non-obvious. So you don't know. I'll explain these terms to you tomorrow in more detail. But it's called the state of the art. If you don't know where you started, what the state of the art was, you will not be able to explain what's new and what's novel. So, just as an example, something you can do with your biggest strategy in mind is, as far as you go along developing your invention or your product, keep detailed notes, for instance, about how you do it. Because once you reach that stage where you want to patent, or where you feel you have copyright that subsists in that, and you want to protect that copyright, you need to be able to show a court of law, but I had copyright in this work. So you need to have the code or how you developed it, because it'll be much easier to prove. Or in a patent sense, when you reach that stage where you want to submit an application, and you made detailed notes, it'll be much easier for the patent attorney to be able to draw up that patent application, because it needs to be very specific. It needs to be very detailed. So that's something you can do, and that doesn't cost money. It's just a bit of diligence throughout the process of you actually reaching the point where you have an innovation that you can commercialize. And for instance, if you're a company, you have an external intellectual property policy where you tell your employees, you keep detailed notes, for instance. You don't discuss the things we are working on with people in the industry. You need to have those policies in place. Those are just two examples. Depending on the type of work you're doing or the type of invention you're working on, you need to sculpture those policies within your environment, within your organization.
Like a non-disclosure.
Like a non-disclosure agreement as well with your employees. You need to have policies to whom they speak to which information they divulge. Just the basic ethics of how do you deal with what we do. And that's important because that's part of the bigger picture that'll ultimately make sense or make it worth it. That you need to do, but it doesn't cost you money. You see the number of examples I've mentioned that you need to think of without it costing you money, but it's important. So you need to have a strategy, both externally and internally. The most successful companies in the world, and I will, just as background and some inspiration, give you some facts and some statistics for you to think about before we cover the nitty-gritty tomorrow, about how successful companies make it and why they make it, why they are the companies they are. That'll inspire you to become one of those companies or to have a strategy to sort of follow behind those companies. That's their secret to success, and we can always learn lessons from them. all of those companies have these internal and external strategies, how they protect their rights. And that's why they're so innovative, because they follow them to the letter. The people that work for them, the people they work with, the way they approach their business. They think in a totally different way. And I want you to start thinking in that way. Because only then will, not only then, but most likely then, you will be successful.
I think two quick comments here. The issue of novelty in patent and innovation and getting the patent for it, how many people you can share with. The problem in Africa is almost every entrepreneurial seminar you attend, the comment is that for your idea to be successful, you need to share it with people so that people make input. And sometimes personally, I have problem with that. So now with this, that's the novelty, and now the idea that you should share more, where lies it too? Then, this, the second one is the internal one, protecting your idea. With the IT engineers, the programmers, in Africa, it's very, very difficult. One, you are not able to pay a startup, you are not able to pay your engineers very well as is being paid in the international companies. Maybe you are new, you are not able to provide a secure laptop. Even in a secure laptop where the security is there,
yes,
engineers always have a way to have those codes. If I can't copy it, I'll take a shot of it.
exactly.
So sometimes, personally, in pharma line, one of the major issues we are having is how to protect your code. Sometimes, so it gets to a point where you are scared to allow the other engineers into the main code because you are not sure, aside the NDA, you are not sure which level, because you can trust everybody, but you can't trust everybody. So
yes, exactly, but that's a very, very good example of what I'm talking
Sorry,
about.
before you answer,
Yes.
I wanted to add something to the first part, especially if you're pitching to venture capitalists.
Yes.
So, and you know they are liable to reject or accept your proposal. So what happens if they reject it and they pitch it to their own person?
That's why you have to have a strategy beforehand in terms of identifying the correct people to speak to in the first place, which is difficult to do, but you should be discriminate in who you approach with your idea. That's the first thing. That's part of the internal strategy. My note here, can I read you my note?
Okay, yes.
Word for word.
Okay.
Then you'll understand that it's not an easy question to answer. Balancing the need to protect core IP assets while encouraging broader collaboration with partners and customers. I listed that as one of the major challenges of IP innovation.
Okay.
So it's a reality. It's a reality. You just need to deal with it the best you can. And that's part of your strategy. That's part of your strategy, is to think about it beforehand and implement your strategy as discriminately as you can. And that's also one of the examples of doing something that would make a huge difference, but that would not at that stage cost you money.
Yes.
Yeah, like I think I can give an example in the whatever you are saying right now. We had a problem. There was a time we were going to pitch our idea to a venture capitalist somewhere, and we developed this NDA, went with it, sat down, and before we started discussion, we asked them, are you going to sign for us this NDA before we proceed on it? They said that is not their policy. And we argued about it, and eventually both of us disagreed, and we told them we are not going to proceed on if you're not going to sign it. So I think the balancing is...
It's a total balancing act. And it's always a relative thing, because it depends on the specific invention, it depends on the industry you work in, it depends on the amount of resources you have. It depends on so many different things. All you need to do is to do the best with the resources you have, within the industry you have, and within the strategic partnerships you have. Even the big companies steal each other's secrets. It happens. That's why Apple and Samsung spend millions of dollars, billions of dollars actually every year litigating each other to death because they steal each other's stuff the whole time, and it's so mixed up now that no one actually knows who stole what, from who. But that's the reality. And that's part of what I'm saying, is you know that's the reality. So take steps beforehand as best as you can from the very outset to try and mitigate your risks, because it is a reality. But the way you manage it, if you do certain things the best you can and you avoid certain things that you know could possibly be pitfalls, and you look out for certain things that you know are definite risks, you won't ever be able to avoid all the risks. We don't live in an ideal world. We live in a competitive world. And innovation is competitive. It's a competitive thing. So that's the reality of what I'm trying to say is you live in a competitive, and the best way to do it is to have a good strategy. And strategy involves thinking about all of these things beforehand and thinking about the risks every time you. If you're not thinking about a patent as an end goal of your work that you do, at the initiation stage, you only think about, I need money. I need money for development. That's all you think of. Well, I'm not saying you guys, I'm speaking hypothetically.
No.
I'm speaking hypothetically.
That has been...
But I've been like that. I've tried many businesses before and most of them failed. Because all you think about at the start, I've got this great idea and I need money to bring it to fruition.
Yes.
So the first thing you think about is, my goodness, I need to get money and I need to tell everyone I know with money. And the more people with money I tell, the better chance I have of getting money. And you already start seeing the dollar signs, and because this is such a great idea. But in the long term, if you at that stage thought of the end goal, and the end goal having a protectable invention, you would have done things totally differently, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Exactly. So that's why I'm saying it's very important from the very outset. Every process you deal with, whether it's making notes while you are going through the process of refining your invention or your business or your idea, to having an internal strategy regarding having agreements, processes in place with the people you work with within your organization, to the having processes, agreements in place for the external people you work with, whether it's your competitors, whether it's your collaborators, whether it's your business partners. You need to think of everything as a whole in order for you to mitigate your risks as much as possible. Of course, the risks are there. It's still, you can have the most wonderful strategy. It's still no guarantee that something won't go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't think about it from the start, then the chances of something going wrong is a hell of a lot better. So I want you to think about that from the very start. Everything you do must be as well planned and as well thought out and as visionary as possible. Because innovation is having a vision. And the vision is not only the end product. The vision is seeing possible pitfalls every step of the way. And that's part of protecting your idea.
Is it possible to apply for an interim patent?
Interim patent? No. No, you can only apply for a new patent.
The patent.
I'm protecting my dream before.
You can always like patent pending.
Welcome to this
Patent the dream.
Welcome to this new.
Tangible.
But as I asked in the morning, every IT innovation may have been on someone's idea or someone's work. So for us, for Farmerline, we have a very difficult issue we are dealing with. It's like when we started the idea, we were doing SMS and we needed to build a voice application. Now, we have one only engineer, a co-founder, who, working, then we have no money to employ anybody who was working on it. And we had contacted some companies who claim they have it. And apparently they don't have it. Though it shows on their website, and it took us like a year to even get someone to set up a meeting because they don't have it. Though they will send it, they said they have it and all that. They were also trying to develop. Then a company from Canada wanted to do something similar. So we partnered. So he had no engineer. Our engineers, 2 of them actually work on the project. The initial idea was that we are building this engine. After that, it's going to be an open source. 3 months to the end of the period, he saw the business opportunity in that, and it became a difficult, so we just have to live.
Yes.
We have to live.
See,
now, the idea, in the agreement, we were focused on agriculture. So every client after that, every client you get in agriculture comes to us. Every client we get non-agriculture come to you, but when they come, we have a percentage. Now he saw his first client was in agriculture. So now, instead of us getting that client, it was like, why should I give you that client issue? So now it's a hanging sort of situation.
Yes.
Because he has the same product, but they are not using in agriculture. We have the same product. The difference is that we have modified ours, he has also modified ours. So what our system can do now, his cannot do, and everybody is building on it. But I'm just looking at the day when...
You see, it's very technical when you look at this, especially source code and patterns, but we'll get into more in detail tomorrow. But in context of our conversation we're having now, part of your strategy, which you could have done maybe a little bit differently, is the original source code that you wrote or he wrote is immediately copyrightable. You don't need to register copyright in order for copyright to subsist. If you manage your process maybe a bit differently, you would have had an agreement with him as an independent contractor or as an employee, which he would have assigned the copyright to you. So whether you eventually patented the software or whether you didn't, shouldn't make a difference.
Okay.
Because if you manage the process correctly, whether you wrote the code or not, you would have been the copyright owner of the code. So you see again, if you manage the process differently, if you thought about or it was part of your strategy to have these agreements in place, then whether you patented the software or not, but the code you wrote while it was working for you guys, the copyright would have subsisted in you. And if you used the same code, even to modify a new code, you would have infringed copyright. And you would have had a remedy. Because he infringed the original copyright that in terms of that agreement belonged to you. So again, part of the strategy. You need to have those things in place. But we'll discuss those details, the copyright and the patenting thing, but it's a good example of how the strategy and how the things you have in place would make a huge difference at the end of the day. The pencil is not up for a question, or is it?
No, I was thinking if I do my question now or wait for tomorrow, because it's related to copyright, but maybe tomorrow is better.
Okay.
Maybe we'll be clarified, don't need to make a question.
Okay. So yes, that's the idea I want to impart on you guys for a start. You need to think holistically. You need to have a strategy that you implement throughout the process, no matter where it is, from having the very idea, even after you've manage to get a patent, for instance, or manage to register a trademark or a domain name, it's only half of the process. You need to have a strategy after that as well. It's not the end of the process. It's an ongoing process. So I just want you to start thinking in that frame of mind, that everything you do is important. And everything you do, you can do a little bit differently or a little bit more strategically in order to protect your idea a little bit better, in order to enhance your chances of your innovation being successful at the end of the day. Do you agree with me? Is that clear?
Yes, but the reality is another thing.
I know it's not as easy. But if it's easy, we would have all been rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or we have been here.
Yes, exactly. But that's the challenge of it, and that's the beauty of it. And the more you guys try, the more you learn. Failure breeds success as well, because you learn hard lessons. And the next time you won't do it exactly the same way, you'll do it a bit differently. And that breeds success. Successful people are people that keep on trying and learn the hard lessons the hard way. So never be discouraged, even if it's difficult. If it was easy, we all would have been rich. All well known, so to speak. How much time do we still have left, Patricia?
If it was easy.
15 minutes. Okay, I'll just use this opportunity to read you a few statistics, just for interest's sake. Just to sort of set the mood for... Yes, but you're welcome to ask a question.
I wanted to request if it's possible for us to get your notes maybe after the workshop. The soft copies.
I'll compile you a set of notes, because these are just random notes.
Okay.
So
They are copyrighted.
they are copyrighted, yes. They are copyrighted.
NDA applies. NDA applies.
They are copyrighted. These are, some of these statistics are 2013 statistics, some of them are 2011 statistics, depending on the survey I'm referring to. The one was by The Economist, and the other one was by the Business Day. The 10 most innovative companies in the world is firstly of IBM of the United States. Secondly, Samsung Electronics of South Korea. Fourthly, Canon Japan. Or thirdly, Canon Japan. Fourthly, Sony Japan. Fifthly, Panasonic Japan. Sixthly, Microsoft United States. Seventhly, I don't even know this company, it just shows you. On High Precision Industry. I suppose they deal with microchips and stuff.
Yes.
They're from Taiwan. Ninthly, General Electric United States. And 10thly, LG Electronics.
So there's no Apple in the first 10.
What number is Google?
Google, I'm not sure. We can have a look.
13?
That's 2013, yes.
So there's no Google, there's no Apple.
There's no Apple. Seriously.
And there's no Motorola.
There's no...
These are 2011 statistics.
Wait.
Was it?
Sorry, Google compiled these statistics.
This was the magazine The Economist. They compiled it out of various other sources. The most innovative companies by country is by far the United States. Secondly is Japan, then France.
France.
Strangely enough, yes.
Yeah.
Really?
Do you have, is there an African country in any of this?
Really?
I'm going to give you some WIPO statistics now.
Because I think Mauritius has...
What about India?
Yes.
Mo Ibrahim's...
Let him finish with that.
Okay, let's get this
Yeah.
one. Then.
10th, and then we'll... Japan. And
Yes,
then
let me look at the WIPO statistics for you. They are also compiled out of very hardcore statistics. They pull the statistics from the various different patent registration offices and trademark registration offices. So the statistics are, wouldn't say 100% correct, but they're very reliable because it's based on actual information. Let's see some interesting ones. The total intellectual property, global applications and active IP rights. Total patent applications for 2012, 2.35 million applications. Trademarks, 6.58 million applications. This is interesting regarding the African question. The shares by geographical region. Patent applications. So you see the difference.
Is it not that maybe tomorrow that answer will is it not that patents applied from Africa takes a longer and difficult time to process compared to coming from
yes, that's part of the problem. That's a big part of the problem. As we'll see tomorrow, you can also register a patent from Africa in a more general in a more international context. But the problem is exactly that. You're absolutely right. Is that we in Africa don't register patents fast enough or correctly enough. And in order to get the international protection, we need to be able to do it on a regional and a national level more effectively. And that's a big part of the problem. So less than 0.6% of the total applications filed for patents in the world came out of Africa. So we need to change this, guys.
Yeah, and we need to tell the people that are jumping out to go to Europe and whatever, are smart people to stay here.
Yes.
No. You see, the problem
That's another problem.
if it's difficult to patent from here, why don't I go there and patent for them?
But that's the thing, we
Yes.
need to fix the fundamentals
Yes.
so that we need to start building at the bottom. We need to start fixing these problems. And I think we're slowly getting there. It'll take a long time still because there's lots to do to change the general perception. But guys like you that eventually succeed in their endeavors, inspire others, and the need grows for the basic infrastructure to protect inventions. And not only the infrastructure, the hunger that all these other continents have to innovate, to protect. So you guys are some of the torch bearers that really need to make it to show all the rest that it's possible to do. We need to start believing in ourselves as Africans. We need to start looking at things differently.
It is not.
I also think
it is not easy. It is not very easy.
No, it isn't
What he
easy.
says,
And I think
it is not easy because it is easy when you go to Europe and patent and come back in Africa. The process is very long. Speed.
No,
But if you begin here, firstly, to have information about patent,
Yes, it's very
you can take 3 months to
If this information is not clear.
after 3 months.
But then that's why we say we need to work on that to change.
All I'm
that.
saying is we need to have a more
We can't be
holistic.
negative.
We need to have. At this stage, I totally agree with you, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
We don't have the belief, we don't have the infrastructure, and we don't believe that it can be better in future. But through battling now and recognizing the problems, even if it takes us a hell of a long time, those that come after us will have it easier. And we need to start thinking that way. We need to fix all the processes you identify because it is a huge problem. I totally agree with you, and it's very frustrating. Because just from a purely intellectual property perspective, we have very, very few and far between expertise. Remember, Patricia, the workshop we had in Benin? It was clear there that we have a huge lack of intellectual property lawyers that actually know what they're doing. Not even lawyers only, judges even. In the most of Africa, we have a great need of expertise in that sense. But we are starting to recognize it. We already know it, and we're starting as a continent, as people, as innovators, as business people, we're starting to do something about it. And that's all you can do, is make a start to change it. And it'll take a long time, but as long as we take the first little steps, it'll go better. And at some stage, our children or our grandchildren will bear the fruits of it.
Well, I think that's why we need
I have
to
a comment, because I think we might focus on so many on startups in terms of raising the number of contents, but number of patents or number of intellectual property protection. But I think the people we need to target most are universities and also the successful companies. If you realize, most of the patents registered elsewhere are mainly registered by successful companies, because they have the muscle to actually go through the patenting process, and also they have the muscle to enforce it, and they also have the incentive to do that. For a startup, for startups, I think it's a bit too much, unless we figure out a way of making it very painless for a certain level of people. But then I think the successful companies and the universities must.
Yes, no, what you say is totally true, and I totally agree with you. It's just we need to be very discriminate in the context in which we think about things. Because every innovation is different. The circumstances are different. And the context in that particular innovation might be, or the strategy might be to go to another company. What I was talking about now in reference to the comments made about Africa is a very holistic, very huge balloon argument thing. We need to change the basics in order for African companies to also eventually be successful, to make it easier for our innovators to be innovative. For your specific invention, the best route at this stage might be to go to a bigger company and see what you can manage to get out of them. That might be your best strategy. But speaking holistically, depending on what context you're referring to, that very specific context of your idea, or the bigger picture about Africa and things we need to change.
That's missing quite a lot. And we need to have that back.
The thing you protect easily in Africa is music.
Yeah, but you know,
It's simple to protect.
I think the problem we have to start somewhere. You know, if we keep on thinking there's nothing, things are not moving, it will never move.
No, I don't think that. I say that we have many things in Africa we can do, but sometimes I don't know if it is somebody who shows that it is impossible, it is difficult, it is complex, it is a small thing, we can do this in 1 hour, but somebody show me that because we say that it is not good, it is not good, it's not good, it's not good, and the thing change. So I think we can change that, it take little time, because just to change this we take one year and 6 months to write.
See, the point is, we just need to realize that we have fundamental problems, and we need to start dealing with them the best we can. Just the last, you guys probably want to go, but just patent applications by patent registering trademarks, patents for 2012 was China with 652,700 patent applications. The next was United States with 542,815 patent applications. Then we have Japan with close to 350,000, Korea close to 190,000, and the applications for the European Patent Office, that's all the European nations forming part of the European Union, 150,000, close to 150,000. So you see, you're talking about huge numbers. Huge numbers. They even break it down in different industries as well. The electronic industry is definitely the industry in which the most patent applications are filed. So yes, that's just a bit of statistics. So tomorrow we'll start looking at some more nitty-gritty of the patents and copyrights and stuff like that. Hope you guys have a good evening, and hope you enjoyed the day. It wasn't too boring. You know, you can go out and start drinking, whatever it is you do to relax.
Thank you.